The Constitution is what? The Constitution is the operating manual for the government. When it first comes out, it's the people's protection from the government. The people can say, hey, look, you got to read that because we don't want to be messed with. We created the government so that they could do these laws, they could sell the property, they could create states, and they could basically leave us alone. As soon as the Constitution was ratified, you know, politicians being what they are, they started, you know, making furtive glances at the rights of the people, and so the people said, wait a minute, we better make sure we have a Bill of Rights. So we'll put a Bill of Rights in there too, and so the Bill of Rights goes in. But guess what? We're talking about the first Constitution is the Constitution for the people, not ratified. It just says, hey, this is what we believe in. This is what we want you to read. This is what we want you to understand, and don't mess with the people. Then that's ratified for the states. Okay, it becomes then the law for the states. Then it becomes the law for the government, the federal government. Okay. Now there's where the whole thing, you know, catches fire for the federal government, and they decide we can use this document to create a system of government that appears to be able to make laws for people. And that's what we have today. We have a government that thinks that they can make laws for us. And governments don't do that. Governments make laws for themselves. The Constitution is supposed to control the government. Okay? And so what they do is they find a way to make it look as if these laws apply to you. So citizens of the United States become their property. The citizens of the United States that they're talking about reside on federal territory, reside within Washington, D.C., or are overseas and subject to the laws of Congress because they're not anywhere on federal territory or state territory, but are still subject to Congress's laws because of international law. It says that the Constitution and the laws passed pursuant to the Constitution are going to be the supreme law of the land. The land, not the people. This is not, remember this Constitution is law for government. See, people came from England and they brought with them the law of England, which was the English common law. So that law always applies because they've got a king over there. See, and of course that's one of the reasons why they were coming over here, because they didn't have a king over here. See, though he tried to control everything, and so you have the Declaration of Independence, and you have all those things that the king was doing that people didn't like. So it causes them to say, we don't want the king. He's 3,000 miles away, so it's time to get rid of the king. And so that was done, but in its place comes Congress. And so what we're going to do, we're going to learn the first lesson of freeing yourself now from Congress that becomes kingly. See, they want to lord it over us, and they have been doing it. They've been passing laws that make people believe that those laws apply to them. We don't. So what we want to do is we want to figure out a way so that you can convince anybody, especially a Supreme Court justice, that they have no authority. They have no authority because their authority is limited to federal territory. And the way we're going to do that is by establishing that a federal justice, the justice of the Supreme Court, is the justice of a court that's inferior to the one in the Constitution. If it's inferior to the one in the Constitution, then where are you going to find it? Where are you going to be able to put that court? Well, it's Washington, D.C. That's where it exists. Then you have the smaller courts, the inferior courts. Those are in the states. The authority that they have extends solely to federal territory. And they're going to take up that tonight because that's a little bit more complicated. But that's how I figured out how this stuff works. Because this has been the law for 216 years, and nobody's figured it out. Because of course it wasn't in the interest of the government to figure it out, and government controls education. And so the government is only going to teach you what the government wants you to know. So so at the very minimum, what we're going to do tonight is learn how to use these documents to prove to anybody. And then I want you to go home and I want you to start proving to everybody that these justices like Scalia or Roberts or Thomas or any of those people aren't real. They aren't real.
Outside of D.C., are they real in D.C.?
They're not Article 3. No. See? Now, we can't do this to the Congress. Congress is Article 1. They can make these laws. See? What we're going to do, we're going to prove that they can make these laws, but they're limited to federal territory. Why? Because they never established a judicial branch. They never completed the government. See, how is it that governments exist? See? Right here. We think about them, and we bring them together. The separation of powers. That means that they can't get together. They act separately. See? But they have to act. And if you leave one out, then what you've done is you've created a special government for a special place. That special place is Washington, D.C., and the federal territory that's not incorporated into the states. And we all know where those places are, like Yosemite. You go to Yosemite, you're taking your life in your hands. The bears or the government will get you. So what you want to do is you want to learn something absolutely correct that will never change. This is never going to change. It's not, because no one is ever going to accept the government again. Why would they? After doing this for 216 years, I think people are going to be upset. See? Because federal taxes, regulations, not being able to smoke medicinal marijuana when you're sick, not being able to run your own life,
total control.
War.
What about federal highways?
Just asphalt. It's just asphalt cement. See, all they did was create the idea that a federal highway is interstate commerce. So all you really have to do to create interstate commerce is to create federal states. What's a federal state? It's a state like California that is made up of federal territory. All the national parks, all the monuments, Camp Pendleton, Fort Ord, the Presidio, all the places that are federal. If you pile all those up and you say, well, that's the state of California. See, no one lives in the state of California. You can't. It's not a place. It's an idea. It's a corporation, a government corporation. But it has land. Why? Because the federal government lends the state land. It says you need some land because otherwise you can't make laws that are believable. Laws that don't apply to a place are no laws at all.